Welcome back to The Next Revolution. We've heard from former Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, and now he and I are joined by our panel, Kimberly Guilfoyle, Joe Malchow and Lucy Flores. Lucy, I wanted to really let the two of you compare notes, because you actually had a very similar experience, didn't you, in terms of the teachings. Tell us about your
I actually,
story.
So again, very much like Mayor Villaraigosa, I'm pro-kid. And to me, it's not that we don't need certain things in Nevada. We needed revenue for education, but the way that the Education Association of Nevada was going about it, I was against. And because I had the courage to say, I don't agree with this, I agree that we need to fund our education, we need to do X, Y, and Z for these kids, but I don't agree that this is the way. I ended up losing that support, and I did not get it back. Right. And that absolutely affected my next campaign. And so in many ways, those of us who do oppose, who for the most part are our friends, but when we have to say, in this situation, yes, we are still friends, but this is what's important, is what we're going to accomplish for these children. Yeah. It doesn't go very well for us, right? As we both have found out.
But I mean, it's what you were saying, isn't it? It shouldn't be a left-right thing.
It really shouldn't. And I've always said I prefer a partnership, and I think at some point people will realize that's the best way to go forward. But I'm going to fight for those kids, because I was one of them. Mm-hmm. I was a high school dropout. I grew up in a home of domestic violence and alcoholism. I was a kid struggling, and people gave up on me, but it was a public school that gave me a second chance. And I think we got to make sure that we're setting the highest standards for these kids. I tell people I can read and write. I grew up like many of them. We were making too many excuses before, mm-hmm. and those excuses aren't acceptable. It's just a fact.
I think that's right. But I think, Joe, I mean, it isn't something that you can just fix from sort of on high by, some bureaucrat telling.
No, it takes a guy like Scott Walker or something.
You need changes, don't you, to the actual way that schools are run, the structure of schools.
It's a structural problem, right? I mean, economists have studied this for decades. Sure, maybe you have unions in a car factory, some other sort of manufacturing company, but the idea of a public sector union, where not only are they bargaining collectively to extract as much as they possibly can, but they're also helping to elect their bosses, the people with whom they're bargaining. You're naturally going to get a lot of money coming out of the system into private pockets, and that's what's happening with the teachers' unions.
So, I mean, you're hoping to be governor of California. Well,
I expect to be governor without people.
You're trying very hard. Just in terms of the debt and the fiscal position of California, the role of the public sector and the pensions, that's a really big issue for any politician running for office at the state level here.
It is,
and in many other states, right?
It is a big issue, and I have a track record. We were facing a bankruptcy. Almost everybody said LA was going bankrupt. I said not on my watch, and I got current employees to go from 6% to 11%, more than anybody in the state.
Sorry, 6% to 11% on
contribution to their. They were only paying 6% to their pensions.
Interesting.
And then I said new employees, instead of getting 100% of their salary at 55, would get 75 at 65. So it wasn't draconian. Yeah. It was fair. It honored work, but also created a more sustainable path going forward. Unfortunately, they changed that when I left, not for the current employees, but for new ones, and now it's back to where it was.
Interesting. Kimberly, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I have some very strong opinions about education. Having worked as a teacher, been an educator, I've taught everything from kindergarten through high school, specializing in children with special needs and emotional differences. And I just saw what a factory system, how poor it is in some of these public schools, mm-hmm. where you have children just being treated not as individuals, but just as a collective group. And I think it's very important to bring education away from the national level with Common Core and things like that, because it's too prescriptive. It's not, one size fits mm-hmm. all. And take it down to the state and local level, make it much more tailored for a child's specific need. I like the idea of following, the child with the dollars to make sure and give parents some of that choice. I've seen tremendous success with charter schools and parents being able to be participatory in it. So, and I'd like to see some reform in the state and federal laws as it relates to tenure. You should reward good teachers, and those that aren't doing the job should be eliminated.
This is something you did, wasn't it, here in Los Angeles, in terms of the performance and teachers?
Well, yes, we said that we thought it was important to evaluate our teachers. We had done surveys that showed oftentimes that a principal hadn't been in in a classroom, and yet would evaluate these people and oftentimes give them a satisfactory or better evaluation. And what we said was, you got to go into the classroom, and we should be able to evaluate on a number of factors, including where a kid starts and where they end up. Not the only factor, just one factor.
Steve, I want to quickly add that what I think is really critical here is that we talk about accountability across the board, because there are just as bad charters as there are just as bad public schools. And so what we need to be really clear here is that we need that accountability at all levels and be honest about where people are performing, whether it's public or private.
Right. I think that's a completely fair comment, and I think that actually if you had more of a marketplace with a level playing field, then you could get that. I'm sorry, it's such a massive topic. That's all we've got time for. I really appreciate you
Thank you for
joining us tonight. Hope to see you soon.